Hi there, good morning. I feel the urgency to do a video for what is happening in Iran. Some people also ask me what are my thoughts about this because I did a presentation of work about Iran a few weeks ago. I just published my review on the Persians. Weird timing. Um, as you all know, Israel and the US attacked Iran yesterday and they bombed a girls' school, they bombed the building where Khamenei was residing. So Khamenei has been reported as killed, uh, which opens a whole new chapter for Iran politically because now I'm not sure what's gonna happen. There have already been talks about seeking revenge. So yeah, personally, I think that this is all very concerning because the US and Israel just broke the international laws again, like they did for Venezuela. As I said in my post, I'm no Iranian, as I'm no Venezuelan, so and I'm not saying what people should be feeling right now. I mean, we shouldn't say that in general, but like, I don't belong to the countries that are suffering this. So I get that a lot of Iranians at the moment are celebrating because finally Khamenei has been killed, and finally, after 47 years of Islamic regime, there is a bit of hope. However, as I share in my stories, and as I shared it this morning, but I also shared it before. I share the opinions of some of the journalists that they are saying that all of this is really concerning, not just for the international laws that be breached, been broke, but also because we all know the geopolitical motivations, yes, but I think we tend to forget history. Iraqis as well, when the US intervened, were very happy. They were celebrating, and then after the war was a disaster. And as I already said for Venezuela, I share the relief that people can feel right now because finally the dictatorship seems like it may be come to an end. I'm just really concerned that like two extremely dangerous political leaders are intervening without apparent reason. This is scary. As I said, I'm standing for Iran, as I'm standing for Palestine, and as I'm standing for Venezuela. My political opinion is that everyone should have freedom. But yeah, I'm concerned about this intervention. Maybe some people don't know, but the Islamic regime has been in power since the 1979. Iran had, in the 20th century, three different revolutions. The last one, with 1979, is the revolution the Iranians usually refer to, and is what basically established the Islamic State, what was supposed to be a republic, and now is just a regime now. So to give a brief history, as my colleagues know because I did this presentation already, in the 20th century, so we still had monarchy in Iran. At the beginning of the century, between 1914 and 1941, the person in power was Reza Shah Pahlavi, who was no royal blood per se, but he was appointed as a leader by actually the British that were there at the moment. So they needed someone to kind of take over the power because they helped with the constitutional revolution. So at the time they needed someone to be in power. And Reza Khan, then became Reza Shah, kind of took over this role, but also it was a general, so it was like a natural choice in a way. So it just happened. And Reza Shah Pahlavi, so he created the Pahlavi dynasty, and in modernized Iran is the man that is considered, even with controversy, even with people loving him, people not loving him. In history is always like that, we all know. He modernized Iran. He invested in infrastructure and education. He founded the University of Tehran. And because he wanted to invest in education, he sent a lot of Iranians to study in Europe, especially in France. France, together with Britain, but especially France, was the model the Iranians were like looking at for revolution, for reforms, for like having a monarchy, but at the same time having a constitution or having a parliament. So that's something that they were countries that they were admiring. Reza Shah Pahlavi sent people to France, even at the time that this was not easy and there was no real payback, like instant payback, because obviously it took time to educate the people, it took time to bring them back to Iran. However, he invested a lot in this, he modernized Iran a lot. In 1941, Britain, Russia, and then the US, but Britain and Russia mainly, decided to depose Reza Shah because they were concerned that Iran may side up with Germany, with the Nazi Germany. Something that the Shah was not interested in doing at all, but obviously we all know that the reasons are never what they are explicitly told us. There are always other political reasons. So Britain and Russia invaded Iran. Nothing new. And they said, no, you need to abdicate and put your son in power. So Mohammad Reza Shah came to power at the time. He was 21 years old. And he is the last Shah of Persia, the last Shah of Iran. He took over his father's legacy. He wanted to modernize Iran even further, but this backfired on him because a lot of like political parties accuse him to be intoxicated by the West. There is a word or a sentence in Persian, in Farsi, that say like West intoxicated. I don't know how it is. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that was the idea. It was really strong. On top of that, Mohammad Reza Shah was very authoritarian. He suppressed the protests with blood, as then after the Islamic regime will come to do. So he wasn't loved that much. It was more controversial with his father because there was a lot of poverty in the country, a lot of corruption. Also, from what I read, the Shah's approach to like politics was a bit like, let me say, weak in a way. Like he was very it wasn't clear, because even when his prime minister Mossadegh decided to nationalize the oil, and I think both Britain and the US tried to stage a coup and remove Mossadegh, because obviously they had the interest since the beginning of the 20th century with oil, especially Britain. BP is British Persian, just to let you know. It was like the Shah didn't really take a firm stand, so he left the country. The US managed to stage a coup. Mossadegh was removed. The Shah came back. Okay. So yeah, his politics wasn't great. I mean, I wasn't even born back then, but as someone important said to me, if his politics was great, we would have now have a revolution. At the time, there were different parties against the Shah. Funny enough, one of this party was only one of this party was Khomeini. Khomeini, that was a clergyman, was obviously an Islamist jurist. Was Ayatollah. He was opposing the Shah. He wanted to go back to the Iranian values. He was obviously talking about his intoxication from the West. However, he was just one of the leaders, one of the political leaders opposing him. So the fact that Mohammad Reza Shah addressed him as his first opponent is something that actually then had a snowball effect for everything that happened after, because there were other parties that were opposing him. They were asking for reforms, they were asking for a republic, Anyway, there were more and more protests. The Shah suppressed them with blood. Yeah, lot of protests, lot of trouble for the country. Eventually, the Shah agreed to leave with a national leader at the time, Bakhtiar. He agreed to leave, but then to come back and reform the country by maintaining the Pahlavi dynasty. However, as soon as he left the country, Khomeini declared Bakhtiar's government illegal. He launched a referendum. He was in exile in France. However, he launched a referendum. The referendum won. The referendum wasn't very clear. It was about are you happy to establish an Islamic state? Yes, no, something like that. So, okay. The referendum won. Khomeini came back from exile. And the Iranians were very happy. However, Khomeini was left sympathizing in his politics, so he seemed quite democratic. He had a lot of left writers, philosophers, politicians. So political theory imagined that when the revolution happened, Michel Foucault was supporting this. And Michel Foucault is one of the greatest philosophers of the 20th century. However, a lot of people in Iran, especially women, started noticing that things weren't going to be great, because as soon as Khomeini came to power, he started imposing the hijab on women. He started saying, no, you cannot go to the beach together with your boyfriend, when you cannot sing in public, you cannot dance in public. We need to end the Western prostitution. We need to go back to religious morals and values. As we know, religion is always a holy dress that politics wears. I think that it's really interesting about this to read, especially this book. So if you want an introduction on kind of the 20th century in Iran, there is this book. It's quite dense, and I think it's a bit confusing. So because it's a lot happening there, I had to have a discussion of 2 hours to understand properly what was going on politically, because it's very dense. However, this one that I'm still reading, What Iranians Want, there is basically a political manifesto from Women for Life Freedom. Talks a lot about what happened when Khomeini came to power, especially for what happened to women. A lot of women realized that what was going to happen wasn't great for them. There is this interview that the only one of the few female journalists at the time managed to get from Khomeini, and Khomeini was already really verbally abusive against her, and you could already see the direction of his politics, because she said to him thank you for accepting to see me, to give me the interview, and he said, I didn't accept your presence, you're here, but I didn't. So a lot of women at the time already said, okay, it's not going to be great. But however, as we know, women's rights, they always tend to be a bit put in the corner when it's not convenient. And at the time, they were dismissed as oh, the hijab is not so important. We have more important matters for the country. So, okay, we will deal with that later. Luckily, some people like Simone de Beauvoir at the time stood with Iranian women. Since then, Iranian people and Iranian women especially have been fighting a lot to get their rights back. Anyway, Khomeini comes to power. All his democratic ideals go to the bin, because obviously they were just an excuse. He started centering the power in the hands of the supreme leader. So at the time, it was supposed to be an Islamic republic, so a republic with a prime minister and then religious power in the hands of the supreme leader. However, both the prime minister at the time and Khomeini managed to kind of center the power more and more into the hands of the supreme leader, so it became more and more a religious regime. When Khomeini died, there were supposed to be other leaders, other ayatollahs as supreme leaders. However, for all political stuff as usual, Khamenei came to power. Khamenei is was even more radical than Khomeini. right now, this is the situation. Iran has been a regime, Islamic State, for the past 47 years. So, what's gonna happen now? Hopefully, Iranians will fight for freedom and will finally establish the country, the state that they want. I hope with more awareness and discernment that they had in 1979, because history tends to repeat itself. As someone said to me the other day, the Philosophy Book Club is cyclical and it's like a pendulum. We tend to go from one extreme to the other. As I said at the beginning, I'm really concerned for the state, for the status of the international laws. I stand for Iran, as I stand for Palestine, as I stand for Venezuela, as I stand for freedom. But this is my view and my kind of summary of what is happening right now. It's really important to me. So yeah, free Iran.